Right. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm told that some additional heating is being located, and will be with us shortly. It is a little bit cool in here this morning. So, hold on just a moment. Is that the heating? Are we in a position to... Is that the heating there?
It is. It's trying to get it to work.
They're just turning the heating on. But I think we need to commence our meeting because it is... it's gone 11:05. So let's welcome everybody to this meeting of Hampshire Fire and Rescue Authority on Tuesday, the 21st of February. Can I just confirm that you've all got an agenda in front of you? Everybody has the agenda. Thank you. So just to remind you, the authority has a protocol for filming and photographing. And at the start of this meeting, I need to remind you that the meeting may be recorded and reported. So if you remain here, you're giving your permission to be so recorded and broadcast. Apologies from myself if I commence coughing in a moment, but I'll do my best. Yes. So, returning to the agenda then, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillors Glenn, Moore and McIntosh.
Thank you very much. Item 2, declarations of interest. Well, that's quite clear on the agenda there. If anybody has anything, please, and it comes up during the meeting, or please indicate and we'll record your declaration. Item 3, minutes of the meeting that we held on the 8th of December 2016. You have the minutes there before you. Are you all content, please, that that is a true record of our meeting held? Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 4, deputations. I've received no notice of any deputation. Item 5, members' questions and development. Councillor Benison wishes to say something.
Chairman, yes, thank you very much. Yes, I received a phone call. It's really some thank yous actually to staff. I received a phone call on Monday, the 15th of December, about mid-morning, to say that Fleet services were going up in smoke, and would I like to come along and have a look at what was going to be left of it. So lunchtime I went there. Thank you to the officer who, to my embarrassment, I can't remember his name, who showed me around and all the crew there. As I'm sure you all went round on your risk review, I was pleased to see that all the fire stations that I'd been round, Fleet, Hartley Whitney, Odium, Yateley, and of course Rushmore, were all in on this shout, and they were just about to have a changeover of staff. But if my memory serves me correctly, well done to Fleet for beating Hartley Whitney by 11 seconds to the fire the previous night. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Councillor Benison. I do know you've been very actively involved in your area, so that was very useful to know. Thank you. Councillor Frankham.
Hi, thank you. I did a visit, mainly in my mayoral role to begin with, at the Basingstoke Fire Station and also the Basingstoke Police, where they actually also share offices with the council. So I learned a little bit more about sharing, found it really, really interesting. What I did also find interesting is that unfortunately a lot of our firefighters are not sure that we as councillors really know the depth of what we do. There was a few comments about when we did the risk review. I did assure them that their thoughts were taken into consideration, and Officer Ryan Thurman was also there. But I found it very interesting and would actually recommend those that will be staying on the Fire Authority that to go and visit your station, to go and speak to the firefighters and find out on the ground, what's happening. I learned an awful lot from those 2 visits.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Frankham. I would agree with your comments entirely. In fact, the service conference that we held last year was all about this is your fire authority, and it was explaining to, we hope it explained to firefighters the role of the governance role of the authority. Accept what you say, not all understand exactly what we do, and it's a continuing message that we have to undertake, and I'd agree entirely to visit your local stations as often as you can. Thank you. Anybody else got anything they wish to?
Can I just say, I lost an awful lot of that. I don't know whether there's a fan or something on, but with my hearing aids, all I can hear is the fan. I can't hear what you're saying at all.
I'll try and move this in closer. Can you hear me better now? I seem to be getting a bit of feedback now, but I'll get that closer. Thank you. These aren't the best of microphones. We've struggled with these in the past. Okay, anybody else got anything they want to come up under questions and development? Nope. Right. Chairman's communications, item 6. Sorry, I'll try not to cough straight into the microphone, sorry. I don't have anything specific to say other than to remind you that we do have a lunch after this meeting. Thank you. And at the lunch, we will be, what's the right word? We will be acknowledging, yes, thank you, acknowledging 20 years of the Fire Authority, and we will have some interesting things to demonstrate about what was happening 20 years ago. So, do excuse me, sorry. So I hope those of you that are able to remain for the lunch will be able to sort of join us, and you will be very welcome. Excuse me. So moving on now to item 7, the activity report. Andy, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. It's my pleasure, as usual, to introduce the activity report to you. I've been told not to say this, but actually it was quite a quiet period for us in terms of activity. So tempting fate perhaps there, but nonetheless it was. And particularly pleased to say there were no fire deaths in this period. The period of from the beginning of October to the 31st of December. I think once again this will show you the wide variety of activity that we undertake and become involved in. I'd particularly like to point out, and many of you were there at the Celebrating Success event at Netley Police Training Headquarters, a particularly well-attended, very successful event, celebrating, as it says, the achievements of our personnel across long service, across incidents and their actions there, and across many other areas. In particular, within that evening, the presentation to Watch Manager Chaz McGill of a 50-year award, which is quite phenomenal. 50 years of operational service, something which can't be commended enough, I don't think. The other one most obvious from that night was the Chairman's Award, a new award to a firefighter who suffered an extremely debilitating illness, potentially career-threatening, but who is, through sheer determination, clawing his way back to operational duties, firefighter Paul Ponsford from Gosport. So those 2 awards from that particular night I felt were worthy of mention. Other things that we have been involved in within the period, as you heard earlier, we have begun recruitment for whole-time firefighters for the first time in 7 years, and their trainees course will begin in April of this year. We now have up 95 volunteers operating for the service across various activities, who are between them providing in this quarter 1,000 hours of unpaid and I would say priceless work supporting the work of fire rescue across all of our activities. We also carried out 40 full and fire investigations in this period. You'll be aware that our arson task force and fire investigation team are extremely successful in both detecting arson and assisting with the police in terms of identifying individuals who are guilty of that crime, and indeed are the most successful fire investigation team in the country. In the same period, we carried out 717 safe and well visits to the most vulnerable people in our community, which again has improved the fire safety and the general safety across the county as a whole significantly. Already mentioned, the fire and fleet services was one of the more significant incidents in this period, and that picture on the front page is in fact from the fleet services, of which around half was saved, and we know that certainly some of the service station was operating the next day. The work of the crews who arrived early on made a significant impact on saving a significant amount of that structure itself. So fleet services was one of the more significant incidents in, as I've said, a relatively quiet period. In terms of the figures, I'd just like to point out one on the front page there. In terms of responding to incidents, you will see a sharp rise in the number of secondary fires from this quarter in 2015 of only 251 to, in this same quarter this period, 366. We're looking into the numbers behind that and why it has gone up. We do know that 251 was a particularly low year. It was in fact very low, and therefore is an outlier in terms of our averages, but nonetheless the increase in those secondary fires is something we are looking into. Other than that, I commend to you the report of our activity over this period and invite any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to touch on that secondary fire information, Andy, the biggest jump does seem to be in Southampton on that. There seems to be an overall across-the-board trend, but Southampton seems to have nearly trebled on that particular issue. Have you got any insight into that in particular? And I would also like to thank you from the single very small hamster that was rescued in Southampton as well. I'm sure that was much appreciated.
Information, so apologies. I can't give you any detailed information on that significant spike in secondary fires. We are currently looking into it, so I wouldn't want to give you anything that I can't be sure of.
Councillor Mintoff, please.
Thank you, Chair. Relating to the group activity report for Southampton, there was a prohibition notice, but we don't have any details of that. Just wondering what that was and sort of the reason for, the change in format of the group activity reports. Also, we've had a fire on Friday, actually in my own ward in Southampton. I've seen the site and I am mightily relieved that there was no loss of life. So many thanks to the fire and rescue, the firefighters, and also really pleased to see that they were working very well with the City Council.
Yes, thank you for that. So the fire, as you say, was a reasonably significant one in a domestic property. Some really good early intervention there and good work with the City Council, as you rightly say. So we'd like to pass on our thanks to them. The initial decision-making and, in fact, use of an ultra-high pressure lance at that particular incident had some impact there. In terms of the layout of the report, absolutely we're trying to give you the fullest picture of what we do, and in terms of business fire safety, clearly there's a lot of activity that we would like you to be aware of, hence reporting on that as we do. In terms of that specific prohibition notice, I don't have any information. We will find out for you what it was. I don't have any information at this time.
Councillor Winnington, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just regarding the commercial property fire in Albert Road in Portsmouth, I'd just like to obviously thank the fire service for their response to that, and also because of the nature of what happened where an ALP had to come from Southampton. Since then, working between management and the FBU, so the frontline staff, they've actually come up with a new staffing profile for the ALP at Southsea, which will hopefully mean that in future the local ALP will be used, and that only when necessary it will come from outside. But I know that that's been some really hard work between management and the FBU to make that work and make that as a way forward. And really, from the risk review point of view, which said we'll take things and learn from them, I think that's been a really good way forward, and I'm really pleased that that's happened.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I'm grateful for the comments made in that last question. I guess from the outset of the risk review, we were absolutely convinced and determined to work with our staff to find the best solutions locally. And when it comes to crewing appliances like the air ladder platform, I think that a sensible sort of conclusion has been reached with the using the expertise of the staff on the station, as well as management having a role in making sure what they planned and what they prepared to do is safe and effective.
Anybody else? Any other question?
Chairman, if I could just say...
Yeah, the Chief Officer wishes to make a comment.
Just to comment, thank you for those questions and thank you for the report from Andy. I'm conscious there's two questions there from Southampton particularly on the preparation notice and the secondary fires, and I'll make sure that Andy, we pick up on those and our community safety officers and feed back to you individually on those 2 points. But thank you for the questions. Thank you.
Right, thank you for your contributions there, everybody. We now move on to item 8 on your agenda, the budget and preset requirements for 2017-2018. Rob Carr, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. Got a standard budget report before you today. Obviously, happy to take questions, although I've forgotten my glasses, so I may have to borrow Jeff's. Just a few comments to make. If I can refer you to page 4 of the report, there's a table there that basically sets out that we've gone from a forecast position of a deficit of over £900,000 to a surplus position for the budget for 2017-18 of over £2 million. There are some significant variances there in relation to savings in pension costs as a result of the introduction of the 2015 firefighters scheme. That has got lower contribution rates for the employer, and we're now comfortable to take those out. We've got the continued efficiency programme, phase 2 efficiencies, which have contributed to the budget in the year. And then possibly most importantly, we've got the council tax base increase of nearly 1.5%, which gives us an additional £700,000 recurring each year. So it's a significant contribution to that bottom line surplus. You may have noticed that we've gone for a 1.98% council tax increase. The reason for that is purely technical. So the way the numbers work out, if we were to apply a 1.99% council tax increase, then some of the different bands, not Band D, but some of the other bands, actually exceed 2%. So we would be over the referendum threshold, and we don't particularly want one of those. So we've played it safe and gone for 1.98%. Up until yesterday, we also hadn't heard what the final local government settlement was going to be, so we were potentially in the position of setting the budget without knowing our final grant figures. But I'm pleased to say that those did come through late last night, and the figures are as they were in the provisional settlement, so we don't have that technical problem. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rob. Members, questions, please. Councillor Cooper. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. In view of item 10, has Mr. Carr done a parallel budget, assuming that there is a change in the coming year or the year after? It'd be interesting to see how our current very efficiently worked out budget would compare with a budget of a combined larger authority?
No, not done a piece of work around that. Obviously, the paper that's before you today, item 10, is to talk about doing a business case, which would obviously explore the budgetary implications of going down that path.
Any other questions? No. May I therefore take you to page 1 of item 8. You have the recommendations there before you from 2.1 through to 2.9. Are you happy to take those en bloc? Everybody agreed? Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, I'm now happy to introduce you to the Director of Blue Light Collaboration, Stu Adamson, who will now give us a presentation on his new role and Blue Light Collaboration. Over to you, Stu.
Good morning. Is this... Hello? It is on. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Stuart Adamson, and I've been in the role of Director of Blue Light Collaboration for a little over 3 months now. And the purpose of standing in front of you was to give you a presentation, firstly on an overview of where we've come to with Blue Light Collaboration over the last 3 months, so a very short period of time. And also to share with you some of the detail and direction of travel working across colleagues in the blue light agencies. So the first thing I'd like to say is that actually, can we go? First thing I'd like to say is that actually we're in a really advanced state within Hampshire. There's a national document that was an overview of all blue light collaboration, which was released at the back end of last year. And actually, when you look through a lot of that, the work that we've done in Hampshire and the support that members have given for some of those early pieces of work have been really crucial in building the foundations. So some of the work that you'll be very familiar with around co-responding, working with our ambulance colleagues, around the arson task force, which Andy mentioned in the activity report, working with police colleagues, and of course our estates programme, which see us share now a strategic headquarters. All of that crucial in building the foundations. What this programme and the work that I've been doing is trying to achieve is a sustainable programme towards collaboration. So it's a long-term arrangement. It's not a change programme where we're just going to try and change a number of different things. It's about ways of working. It's about working together. And the two crucial things which I'll come back to during the presentation are really that this collaboration is built on relationships and understanding. And if you get those two elements, between colleagues across the agencies, actually that's where we'll get really good and sustainable collaboration. So, as the slide says, what do we mean by collaboration in Hampshire? Well, working together, as the first bullet point says, but working together, you'll refer back to item 10, there's a paper and it discusses in there the new duty to collaborate. But actually, I think that where we've shown over the past years, and I refer back to those early collaborations, is it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do to make our emergency services more effective and more efficient. What we're trying to do with this programme is work together, and you'll see the three on the left-hand side of the slide, the three circles joining together. And what we mean by collaboration is where those circles join together. So we'll have, in some cases, two organisations collaborating, as I've said, with co-responding, or in some cases, all three agencies, and I'll come back to some of those examples as I go through the presentation. We're looking to share and have a shared understanding of what risk means, and that's really about our evidence base. That's making sure that we're really providing the service as effective and as efficient as we can. And one of the other crucial principles that we're looking to try and achieve, which hopefully the diagram shows, is that we want to maintain our identity. We are different organisations. The police is very different to fire, it's very different to ambulance. And actually, combining together to create a single officer is not what we're trying to achieve here. We need to build upon the identity and the skills and expertise of our own individual organisations. So fire, for example, are very good in the prevention arena, very good at talking to people, and it's actually those skills that are crucial in allowing us to deliver some of those shared objectives. Ultimately, the statement at the bottom is absolutely what we're trying to do. We're trying to create better outcomes for the public to keep them safer, and that contributes to our overall mission of making life safer. So what we've tried to do is put in place a structure, which I'm going to come to, and I'm going to talk you through a structure. And this is really to help. So it's not to put anything around this working together and to constrain it, but it's to help, and it's to help us get from start to finish with a lot of these ideas. It helps us identify a point of governance, so how we're going to move things forward, identifies where we would look for potential future funding, and it looks for the people, it looks for who we need to be involved and who we need to report to. So I'm going to talk you through the governance and model of structure, and hopefully you'll pick up some of the details. So on the left-hand side, there's a small model which hopefully you can see. Each of these will become bold as I move through, so they'll be a little bit clearer. So the first one that we've got at the top is the relevant authority, and that's for yourselves. That's for the Hampshire Fire and Rescue Authority, it's for the Police and Crime Commissioner of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, it's for the South Central Ambulance Trust. It's the people that have overall governance, and their role is to govern, and your role is to govern this working together. Each chief officer will report into their own relevant governance model. So as I've reported on behalf of the chief officer to PRSC and to the authority, and standing here today, and subsequent reports will go forward in the form of the activity report. So other chief officers, being from the police and ambulance service, will report into using their own governance structures. The next line down is what we refer to as the Hampshire Blue Light Executive. This is the officer group, the chief officer group, setting the strategic direction of operational collaboration. It's also responsible, and in terms of, I talk about the point of governance, for transforming services. So anything that's very transformational, new, outside of the box, is back to that group to authorise and to consider those changes and to set the strategy. The next line down is the delivery board. This board is put together representation from across each of the services, myself representing fire on this and chairing this board, and it's really there to coordinate and authorise improvement projects. So it's about making our services better, working together, and it's allowing us to be able to move forward ideas, move forward projects as quickly and as within a good governance model as we possibly can. So we have some coordination around those. And like I said, it is there solely, its purpose is around improvement. So what I'm going to move on to is the coordination of those 5 work streams, which you'll see at the bottom. And I'm going to run through each of these 5 work streams. And this is where I guess some of the detail and some of the interest comes from. It's some of the ideas and where we might be working to improve services for the public. So the first one is managing demand. So managing demand is really the evidence base for our work. This is the bit of work, if we can get this right and we can understand demand across police, fire and ambulance and how we share that demand and how we move that demand around, we can become much more effective and much more powerful in delivering a good service. So there are 3 real elements that we're looking at the moment here. One is around overlapping demand, and that's really subdivided down into people, places and types of instance. If you think about the most likely person to die in a fire, where we are most precious about those people, They also suffer from falls, and that's why we've seen us starting to work with health around falls. We also see that they are more susceptible to doorstep crime, to cybercrime. And actually, by working together and understanding those groups of people, we can target and deliver services much better. Places, again, we know that where we go, for instance, police go, for instance, health go, for instance. So actually, by understanding those places and coming up with a place-based solution, we can target our resources much better. And incidents, we all know that we go to similar types of incidents together. So a road traffic collision is the obvious example that I always use, where all three organisations go. And this is about making our work as streamlined as possible, as effective and efficient as possible. We also know that we have some unnecessary demand. We push demand around our system. So we call for the police, we call for ambulance, and sometimes that may not be the requirement. And really what this is crucial to understanding here is understanding the organisations and the capabilities and capacities of what we can do and what the other agencies do. And if we can understand that, actually what we can do is, rather than push demand around a system, we can deal with that demand in one place. And then finally, tasking. As we see emerging risks from either of the three organisations, we can start to task the other organisations if we understand what they can do and what their capability or what their capacity is. We've done this very recently across the county with police, where local policing teams will have an emerging risk in a particular area, and actually we can use our fire resources to do some good work in the community where they see that emerging risk. And it really helps to deliver a much safer outcome, and not really a great deal of extra work for our resources. They just need a little bit of different focus. So moving on to the second one, this is probably the most well-established, and this will be familiar to most members in the room. So this is about our estates programme working together. It's about our fleet maintenance programme working across the county and using our fleet and analyse. There's some work looking at analysing the fleet requirements, fleet maintenance requirements across the police and fire, and looking at how we use our estates to best maximise the use of that. Training facilities, we know that we've got our training facilities here that need some investment. We know that the police have training facilities that they need investment. So there's a piece of work which has just started around two things, looking at what the training requirements are for the two organisations, and where that overlaps. So going back to the blue and red overlapping circles, because there will be some overlap, such as command. And then subsequently, looking at how that feeds into the estates programme, and where and how are we going to build a training estate for going forward. Logistics, there's some work currently underway with our estates team, looking at how South Centre Ambulance use our estates to allow them to replenish the consumables on ambulances. Currently, they have to go to a hospital or they have to go to a base, which could be quite a way away. But actually, we have a fire station in the heart of every community. If they could use that facility, actually that makes that much more powerful, and the ambulances will be therefore operational and ready. And then finally, I mentioned business continuity. At the moment, we share an estate, so we share this building. We have two business continuity plans for this building, one for police, one for fire. That's an absolute nonsense. We need to have one way of working. So we're looking together at how we combine those elements and bring together so that we share those bits of expertise. Specialist capability, always the more exciting work stream. So I've just mentioned some of the areas of specialist capability that we've seen and we've started to work around in. So responding to falls, you'll have seen within, and you'll see within the Fire as a Health Asset paper, which is within the PRSC notes, that we were looking to start a trial in Wickham area about responding to non-injury mechanical falls. Well, that's now live, so we are operationally ready to go, and we're working with South Central Ambulance to attend those incidents. So a really good example of us attending an incident where we have the skills and expertise. We also know that those people are most likely to be the risk group that we want to see, and prevention is really at the heart of everything we do, that our crews will be able to do prevention work as well as help with that emergency incident. So it's a really good example of us joining together there. Gaining entry, something we've been doing for a little while now. So police used to gain entry on behalf of South Central Ambulance for a number of years. We use our powers now to gain entry. Believe it or not, firefighters do less damage than the police, gaining entry to people where there's a cause for concern. And we also make an ambulance, we make an ambulance available 20 minutes earlier by doing that as a result of that work. It also means that the police don't now attend those calls. So you have police officers more available, ambulance more available. We use our skills and expertise, and we find the most vulnerable to, again, go back for prevention. Missing persons is a trial just about to kick off in Southampton. There's quite a demand for high-risk missing persons, so they are people that are at immediate risk to either themselves or the public. And this can be someone, for example, a child that's gone missing in an area, or it could be a person with dementia that's gone out of their care home or their residence and is lost at immediate risk. And actually, we have the skills and expertise to deal with that. Currently, it's the police that deal with that on their own. They don't call us. But actually, when you think about it, we have numbers of people, we have equipment, we have thermal imaging equipment. We know the area very well. It makes sense to use us and work with the police who will still lead that investigation, that search, but it uses our expertise, and collaboratively, we come up with a much better solution. Once we've looked at the high-risk individuals, we're also going to look at potentially the medium risk. So the police categorise when a person goes missing the level of risk that they attain, and they get a huge demand in the medium risk. And actually, it may be by sharing some of those details with us that we may be able to be the eyes and ears, in addition to police, in addition to ambulance colleagues, that may be able to find those people a little bit earlier. So just by sharing that information. And then I thought I'd put one in is around a procurement exercise. So we would have a great benefit from having a drone facility. We used to have an aerial facility that we could use at instance. The police have a similar need and a similar desire. Actually, it makes no sense for us to have a different drone procurement process and operational process. It doesn't matter whether someone in a fire uniform or a police uniform turns up to an incident, as long as they can fly that and can converse with the incident commander. So again, it makes perfect sense for us to look at that. The workforce work stream is about people, as you would imagine. The first bit on there that I've referenced is a World Cafe event. Now, I've not been and experienced one of these events, but apparently it's like group speed dating. So you move around a room, talking to colleagues within the room. And really, I refer back to what I was talking earlier on, is this is about building relationships. It's about building an understanding of where the opportunities to work together lie, and perhaps where some of the barriers, and to unearth some of those barriers. So what we're doing is we're bringing together a group of middle managers and senior managers to come together in a room to experience a professional event held by our workforce development colleagues to explore and build some of those relationships. We've got cadets schemes. The police have a very big cadet scheme. We've put both of those leads in touch with each other. So I feel like a bit of a dating agency sometimes, putting leads of people who are similar together. We hope that we can develop some of the experiences that we both have and the development of the young people that attend those cadet scheme in a much better way together. Similarly, with our volunteers, Andy's just referred to in the activity report that we have a great deal of volunteers. The police have a huge volunteer scheme. Again, by working together, we can make that much more effective and effective going forward. Specials was a really interesting meeting that I've had with a Specials colleague. So Specials are now starting to do some co-responding in their community. We have 14 years worth of experience in that. We can bring the Specials co-responding a long way with us, with our experience and our expertise in that area. And what we're going to do is also look at opportunities around the skills of Specials. Very similar to our retained personnel, they all have different other jobs, they all have other skills, and actually building some form of database, which is now underway, we can start to utilise and harness the skills of both Specials and our retained staff for the good of our organisation and for the good of the community. And finally on there I mentioned TRIM, which is our trauma diffusion scheme. So when one of our firefighters or a team of our firefighters goes to a particular incident or a particular traumatic event, this is a method by which a practitioner can go and sit with them and try to diffuse some of those that trauma that they might have experienced and help with their mental health and recovery of that. The police, ambulance, both use the same scheme. Makes no sense that we don't bring those together. So we now have those three elements, those three teams have brought together, they train together, they share experiences, and importantly, if we ever get a major incident across police, fire or ambulance, or indeed all of us, we now have some resilience because they can now work together and work to provide some resilience so one organisation doesn't run out of practitioners. And then finally, the final work stream, prevention. And really, this one is very, very much dependent on the first one, around demand. It's about understanding where we are needed, understanding the people, understanding those incidents, and then doing what we're really good at doing, which is preventing that demand in the first place. So a lot of this work will depend on the outcome from the managing demand, which is that work which is just underway. However, we have already got some examples of where we can work together, and we know that we can work together. We've heard about, and you'll be familiar with our Safe and Well visits, which currently look at fire safety. They look at a slip and trip type risk assessment. What we're going to do is add into that the instance of doorstep crime and cybercrime, certain cybercrimes. Because we know that the people that we're trying to engage with are both at risk of that as well. And then as we find more and more joint risks on the demand work stream, we'll start to shape our Safe and Well visits as a successful intervention. We know around the country, PCSOs and retained firefighters have worked very closely, and in some cases, first responders or co-responders worked into that mix. So we, again, will look at where can we pull together those local resources to target the risk. But it has to be done on demand. It has to be done where there's a need, and not just for the sake of it. So it's very much dependent on that first work stream. We know that over the last 2 or 3 years that fire as a health asset has been a real success for us. You'll see within your packs the paper to the PRSE committee and all of the good work that's been done around that. The police have now signed at a national level through the National Police Chiefs Council an understanding with Public Health England and NHS England, very similar to how fire went about this. So what we can do is we can start to use our expertise to help locally how police work as a health asset. And we've already started to deploy some of the police teams, the local police teams, into the falls work that we do, which will help us to find the people that we need to engage with on the steer courses and make those much more sustainable. And then the final one there is really about that local community work, is about those people that are at the centre of the community and doing that prevention work. It's just about working together rather than working as separate, which is what they do at the moment. And for example, we go to schools, police go to schools, health go to schools. Bit of a nonsense. So we're pulling that together. So I just thought I'd mention communications. There is some communications which hopefully members will be included in, or you will be included in, and you'll see going forwards. At the end of February, we're intending to launch some internal communications designed to update our staff so that they are on the same page with a lot of this collaboration, and also to reassure them that we're not trying to change our firefighters into police officers or police officers into firefighters, but we're doing this together. And ultimately, what I hope this will achieve is that we will seek some ideas and involvement. As I go back, it's the people and our teams that make this sustainable and will make this powerful and long-lasting. If we have a change programme where we come in, make some changes, as soon as we take away that resource, that will stop. This is about changing the way we work, and hopefully this internal communications will start to stimulate some of that work. The external communications is around sharing our ideas with our local and trade press. It's about sector improvement, so it's helping others to learn from the experiences that we have, but also we get some opportunity because people know that we're involved in that and will start to share ideas and share opportunities with us. So it's really important that we start to use some of our external communications channel. I've put public with a question mark. We haven't got any plans at the moment for public communication around collaboration, but it's just something as a thought, a seed in there that probably at some point we will want to and need to talk with our public, who ultimately this is designed to serve them. So the next steps for the programme is that there are a number, across those 5 work streams, there are a number of workshops that are going to take place. So such as the World Cafe event that I talk about, there's a coming together of like-minded special capability leads, same for prevention. And what I hope that we will achieve from that is that we'll achieve more ideas from getting those people in a room, building a relationship and understanding what the capabilities and risks and challenges that each other faces. And from that, what I hope to put together is pull together a timeline of events which will give us a plan of this is what blue light collaboration looks like in Hampshire for the next few months. In terms of reporting, I'll be submitting a report to the Blue Light Executive, which will be in the start of May, and that will really summarise where we've got to over the last 6 months. So from the instigation of this piece of work is what that looks like, where we've come from, and what the opportunities look like going forward, and what do we do to make this and keep this going, keep this sustainable. In terms of updating to the authority, paper went forward to PRSC committee, and one of the recommendations in there was that we will start to bring some of the detail that I've spoken about today into the activity report to allow members to be cited on that going forward, so that you get that detail and you're able to see and scrutinise that detail. So just in summing up, I've spoken about two things for me and my experience over the last 3 months that are really crucial for this to work, collaboration to work, is around building those relationships and building an understanding of our different organisations. I'll be honest, 3 months ago, I didn't really understand the police. I sort of understood ambulance a little bit more from working with them. But now I understand a great deal more, and actually by understanding that I can see many more opportunities, and that's what I want to share with my colleagues. I think the foundation that we've got in Hampshire is absolutely crucial. And I think that your support in those early opportunities that we had around co-responding in Arson Task Force has made those foundations really firm and allow us now to kick on and kick forward with a lot of these ideas. And I'm grateful for the members' support as I've achieved through the recent pre-RSC committee. And I hope that we'll be successful in a long-term and new way of working together, because I think that that's what really crucially this needs to be. It's not about collaboration, it's about a new way of working, and the focus really is on our ambition to be much more effective and much more efficient in making life safer, our mission. So thank you, Chairman. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Stuart. Does anybody have any question, please, for Stuart? Councillor Price? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stu, thank you very much for a very good presentation. I think it was a very good eye-opener to what is being thought of, what is being looked at, and the possible ways ahead. I think as I would see it from a member's point of view, what I would be very interested to know is that when you get to the detail, is how those things are actually going to work and how is it going to affect firefighters, police officers, ambulance officers, and how is it going to affect our individual communities. And obviously, as you have said, there are buildings, what effect it will have on those and what have you. So it's more the detail that I'd be very interested to hear about once you get to that stage. And I would hope that you would be able to come back and give us a presentation similar to today on the detail rather than the high line.
Yeah, more than happy to schedule that with the Chairman's permission.
Councillor Whittington.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. Obviously, with any collaboration, especially between things, you can sometimes get into a situation whereby you lose the specialism and you just go for generic. So what are you doing to try and make sure that doesn't happen, especially when we're talking about volunteers and people like that, to keep the distinctiveness, but also to feed in together? And also, what's been done with the work streams to involve the FBU, the Police Federation and the health unions? Because obviously in some things like this, it can become a threat if it's not managed properly.
Yeah. So just in terms of the specialisms, I think, as I said within the presentation, absolutely we need to maintain that identity, and we see that where there's a real need for that specialism, we'll maintain that. We're not looking to dilute any of that specialism. It may be that working together, we have one organisation leading, but using another, as I described for missing persons. So the specialism stays with the police, but actually they use us and our expertise as the specialism. So absolutely, I've got that. You know, we're mindful of that and don't want to dilute that. In terms of the unions, I've met with the representative bodies. At this stage, they're very supportive, and the commitment that I've made to them is that I will continue to meet with them and keep them informed, and keep both a membership level and also at the representative level. So I'll try and keep both of those, hence the detailed internal comms, but also I'll hold those meetings. All right.
Councillor Coombs.
I think it sounds like you're the ideal person for the job. Communication is key. Like you were saying with unions in Southampton, we work very carefully with our unions, and it does really help with our future work. We've heard on the HR committee that we've struggled a bit with our cadet scheme, both in terms of having the officers to run it, getting enough cadets in. So I think it's brilliant that both volunteers and cadets will be working with the police on, who are a little bit further ahead, possibly, you could say. I've got personal experience of dementia and missing people, and I think the fire service is a much better place than the police, because I think just as safe and well visits, fire officers are much more welcome into anyone's house. I think the same goes with missing people. I think it's a brilliant idea, and like you were saying with thermal imaging, I think you can really help and can really help the police not just have to be responding to that and spending lots of officer hours. So it's really good to hear. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Right, and finally, we've got Councillor Pearce, please.
Thank you, Chairman. You did mention drones at one point. Is there a maximum height that we can fly before we pull them down? Because we're several airports around this area, and quite often aircraft are flying around 400 feet. Would they go above that 400 feet, or is there a maximum height that the drones can fly? Thank you.
I'll be completely honest, I'm no expert on drones. What I do know is that, as I've said with the operational element, is that we would need a lead for that. So we would need effectively a pilot, and they will be absolutely trained up as you would expect from both a police or a fire perspective. And it's that expertise that we want to tap into. So absolutely, I would leave that expertise to the expert and hope that our fire commanders will be able to tap into that expert safely. I haven't got that information for you, but I could.
Yeah, so I can add something to that. So there are Civil Aviation Authority guidelines with respect to drones. They're absolutely clear about the level of qualifications, where you can fly, where you can't fly in relation to airports and other areas, defence premises, for example. So we currently have that capability. We have people who have been trained in the past, and we will always comply with those civil aviation requirements in respect of drones.
Right, I'm conscious of the time, but Councillor Mintoff, you want to ask a question? It is a question, is it?
Not so much a question as a comment about what Andy's just said about drones. I actually sit on the Southampton Airport Consultative Committee, and there has been a consultation about drones, etc., and there is guidance coming forward shortly.
Right, thank you for that clarification. Right, thank you, Stuart, for your very interesting presentation there. We look forward to hearing further from you in due course. Right, now moving on, members, to item 10, potential to expand the existing combined Fire Authority of Hampshire, Portsmouth and Southampton to include the Isle of Wight Fire Authority. Well now, the Police and Crime Act places a duty upon us to collaborate, and I think we should all be sort of recognise the fact that we've always sought to keep Hampshire in the vanguard of collaboration, and this proposal, I think, does that. So I will invite the Chief Officer to present his paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to present this paper to the authority. The strategic partnership that Hampshire Fire Authority has had with the Isle of Wight Council has now been in existence for 2 years, and I think it's true to say that, as we anticipated, the two services have aligned, and this paper now concentrates on a mandate to myself to look at a business case over the next 8 or 9 months to see whether the governance of the two services can change and whether there's opportunities. As the previous presentation has mentioned, and as we've already spoken about, the Police and Crime Act has now come into being, and that places a duty for us to collaborate with blue light services, and therefore there is a requirement, I believe, a new requirement, which this paper also alludes to in the recommendations. A new duty is placed upon the fire authorities to collaborate, and as we've heard from Stuart, we are proactive in that space. I guess one of the questions in looking at this issue is why now? Why at this point in time? I think the Police and Crime Act is a driver for us. I think the success of the strategic partnership over the last 2 years is also a driver for us, but also the financial pressures both on this authority and particularly on the Isle of Wight Council, I think is also a driver for us. And then from Jeff's presentation earlier this morning from the awareness session, fire reform, in terms of the collaboration expected through that fire reform nationally and the Minister's speech a couple of weeks ago, I think they're all key drivers for us to look again, as we have at some point in the past, at whether the combined fire authority of Hampshire, Southampton and Portsmouth could be expanded to include the Isle of Wight Fire Authority. So I think the timing is correct. I think this paper, we've worked very hard, and my appreciation to Rebecca Lee, who has worked on this paper tirelessly. We take this paper, a mirror of it, to the executive of the Isle of Wight Council this evening, and Chris is coming across with me to attend that meeting as well. And with the agreement of both authorities, then I can start a piece of work that looks at a business case. We've worked hard to ensure that this paper itself doesn't set out any outcomes of that business case. It is simply saying, do you want to have a conversation between the two authorities to look at what the art of the possible is and the options are for the two authorities? That would include, I think, as options a status quo. Are we set as we are and that's working for us? Or are there opportunities? And I think it's incumbent upon the services and the authorities to seek whether there are opportunities in this collaborative space between the two authorities. The paper also sets out the principles, their principles on page 3 at 5.1, the 6 principles that we've established that the business case will work to. And also I thought it was incumbent upon us to also set out in section 6 generally the areas that the business case should and would explore if agreed to by the two authorities. So I present the paper. The timescales are that if agreed by the two authorities today, that a business case will be brought back to the authorities in December, and therefore at that stage a further discussion and decision can be made by both. Happy to take questions, Chairman.
Councillor Price, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am very disappointed in this report. To me, it is a backdoor report to actually get the amalgamation of these two services. We have looked at amalgamation in the past, and I think pretty well everybody, the member of the Fire Authority at that time, rejected that totally because the cost of about £10 extra on county taxpayers to actually fund that service. And the Isle of Wight were the only gainers out of that in the amount of money that the taxpayers would have to pay. But besides that, I think that if one looks at the increasing this, or bringing another person into the Fire Authority, with the decision which the majority party has made at the moment, which those of us on the opposition do not agree with, of reducing down to 9+1, that means you are taking another member out of the allocation of seats from Hampshire County Council. Because you would have one each from the two cities, you would have one from the Isle of Wight, you would have the police commissioner, that's 4 of the 10. So you reduce from 7 to 6 from the county point of view, unless you are proposing to re-look at the number on the size of the fire authority. So there's a lot of information in this which is not being said, and I think that's what worries me, in that we need to know more at this stage, and that before we can actually vote upon it. What is the real thoughts behind it? What are you trying to really achieve? You talk about cooperation and what have you. We do cooperate with the Isle of Wight. As Chief Officer, you are seconded, or you're paid for by them for so much time per year, and working together that way. We, other officers, spend time there. We cooperate, we do what is really expected of us. other than taking over the service or amalgamating the two services together. So I think I have extreme concerns on this, and I will probably, once we've had a debate, propose an amendment to the recommendations which are here.
Councillor Wall, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think there's a lot of fuss being made unnecessarily. What we've got is the proposal to ask a question. I don't know what the answer will be from that question, and it isn't really for us to decide the answer, because there will be a new authority after May, a slimline authority, and the members of that will see the answer to the question. So I believe we should ask the question as it's been put. And I have to say, I think the only reason for objecting to asking a question is if you're worried that you might not get the answer you want. I support the recommendation.
Councillor Burgess, please.
Thank you, Chairman. 1.1 states the Chief Officer to create a business case. That's all we're doing at the moment. We're looking for a business case to see whether it's feasible. We're not making a decision whether we're going in or out, or whether the makeup of the fire authority is 10, 9, 11, whatever it wants to be, or the political makeup of it. The fire authority is here to do a job, just the same as the Chief Fire Officer. He's asking for a mandate to look at a business case. I fully agree with it and support it.
Thank you. Councillor Benison, please.
Chairman, thank you very much. A question, please. How many years ago did we last look at this possible amalgamation with the Isle of Wight, please?
I think it was about 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah, it was about that sort of period. Do you agree, Roger? That it was 10 years. Yeah, it's about that time.
Councillor Simpson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I listened to Councillor Wall and Councillor Burgess saying this is only a proposal to ask a question. I actually thought that when I first read it, then I read it again. It's actually not. The proposal is to reach a predetermined end. That is quite clear in the second line of 2.2, where it says the authority to create a business case. It's not to investigate a business case, it's to create one for a predetermined end. That is what it actually says in the proposal. Therefore, the end has already been determined, in which case you don't need to wait till December, you can just put it forward, because that's what you're saying. I cannot support it as it currently is.
Councillor Winnington, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have some concerns about this as well. I think this just seems to be a bit backwards to me. This proposal, whatever it might be, and obviously it's not clear at all, and this is part of the problem I have with the recommendation, it doesn't have any, it says a business case for what? I don't know. It could be about anything to do with the subject of the Isle of Wight. I don't know. I think the real issue I have, and it actually comes back to when I had a chat with Dave when I first came onto the authority, and we talked about the way that though he does both jobs in terms of being chief officer, there is a separation in governance, that the Isle of Wight properly has governance over their own fire authority, including all their officers, and we have it for Hampshire. And I think by muddling the two, that we have a transactional arrangement with the Isle of Wight Fire Service for our Chief Officer and Deputy Chief Officer and vice versa, is muddling it up with the fact that our governance should be and has to be separate because it's a democratic thing. I think if there is a wish for amalgamation, I think it should come from the Isle of Wight. I think the Isle of Wight should make it absolutely clear. We should only be reacting to what the Isle of Wight want to do here. If they want to amalgamate with us, if they want to merge their fire authorities or something, they should make a proposal to this authority and then we can consider it. There can be discussions behind the scenes about how we go about it, but I think that would be a much better way of doing it rather than have a recommendation to create a business case of which we have no idea what it is, though as Councillor Simpson says, if it's create a business case, perhaps there is a predetermined outcome. And I think that's the way we should do it. I think we should leave it up to the Isle of Wight to say what they want to do. If they want to extend that transactional arrangement into something which is more like amalgamation, then they should come to us. At the moment, if all it was a merger of the two fire authorities, you would then have a member from the Isle of Wight having a say over our fire service, for which they have no stake, and you would have vice versa. I don't think that's a very good way forward. I would need to see it a lot more clear, and I would recommend and I would request deferral of this item until the next fire authority meeting. As has already been said by Councillor Wall, it will be a new fire authority after May. They should consider where they are, and I would like to see a much clearer recommendation of the direction of travel.
Councillor Mintoff, please.
There is a proposal, Mr. Chairman. I seconded it.
Right, okay, you've given me a proposal there to defer, and you're seconding. Okay. I'll just take Councillor Mintoff first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've heard about some uneasiness about the viability of a joint fire and rescue service and fire and rescue authority. I want to focus on sort of numbers and, how many places on a fire authority this potential joint authority would be. The new model will be one each from Southampton and Portsmouth and 7 from the county. You bring the Isle of Wight on board and you give them a place, when the Isle of Wight has got just over half the population of Southampton, and it's also considerably smaller than Portsmouth. The Isle of Wight would have a far greater say over Hampshire than we would over them.
Right, thank you for that. Right, now I now have a proposal to defer this paper which has been put forward and has been seconded. Proposed by Councillor Winnington, seconded by Councillor Simpson. So at this stage I think does anybody else want to speak upon that proposal?
No. Councillor Burgess.
Oh, Councillor Burgess.
Thank you, Chairman. I go back to para 2.2. What we talked about is letting the Chief Officer look at a business case for consideration, and it is coming back to the authority. It's coming back to the new authority in December 2017, and the final words are for further decision. So they're going to make the decision, not us. So I believe we leave this as it stands.
Thank you. Right, we will vote now, unless anybody else wants to speak on the proposal for a deferment. No other speakers on that? No? Right, thank you. So I now propose to take a vote then. All those in favour, please, of a deferment of item 10, please show. Can we... 8 in favour. All those against deferment of item 10. Can we just confirm those numbers, please?
Sorry, Chairman. There were 8 members for and 13 against.
That amendment is defeated. Councillor Price again.
Mr. Chairman, can I propose a further amendment then, please? That in paragraph 2.2, that we delete the word in the second line, create, and substitute that word for investigate.
Yes.
It's a nuance of words.
This is, as we're just saying here, nuance on words. The proposal... I beg your pardon?
Words are very important because I've seen in many places the interpretation of words can throw the whole meaning of a thing out.
I understand what you're saying. But quite honestly, I don't think this is an issue, really. I mean, you can interpret create in a different way, I suppose. But if we're saying substitute create for investigate, that is not really an issue. I think. I mean, what do any other members have a view on investigate as against create?
If they're happy with the fact we investigate it, we agree it and move on. Thank you, Chairman.
I would agree entirely with that. Thank you, Councillor Burgess. So the proposal is then that in 2.2, the authority investigate a business case or instruct the chief officer to investigate a business case rather than create a business case. Are you all agreed on that? Right. So with that change, can I then put those recommendations to you?
Agreed.
You agreed? Thank you very much. Thank We now move on to item 11, which is the minutes of Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee held on the 24th of January. Sorry, I do apologise. The chairman of this committee is not here today, so Frank Pearce, the vice chairman, will present these minutes. Over to you, Frank.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll present the minutes for the meeting held on the 24th of January, Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee. I might add there were no deputations at this committee, and I'm prepared to answer any questions, if possible, with the help of the Chairman and his team up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Councillor Frankham, will you wish to ask a question?
Yes. First, let me say wow about the presentations that we've had from the officers. So we've heard from different speakers about the health asset that's obviously on within the report in the Performance Review Scrutiny Committee. At the meeting, we went into some depth on the particularly the health asset. And we felt very strongly that a report should go to full council in Hampshire. Indeed, we recommended it formally. Councillor Glenn duly did this. And also in view of my visits to Basingstoke Fire Station and concerns by our staff in the fire service, I thought it was a real step forward. Only to find no business, no report. This kind of begs the question, how can a full council be expected to know the diversity and the length of work that the fire service do, but they occasionally have to vote? I believe we have a duty to keep those informed that are not serving members of the fire authority. I was disappointed. I was disappointed that I wasn't able to speak. I was told to basically shut up and sit down. But I think it is more important, even more important now with the new model, that we are kept informed in the county of what's happening. It's a fantastic service. They're doing fantastic work. But I'm afraid we're not getting through to councillors, let alone the public, the amount of work that the fire service do, and indeed alongside with the police force. I was very disappointed that the recommendation on page 5 was totally ignored.
Right, thank you for that. Returning therefore to the County Council meeting last week, I was aware that you were trying to ask me a question, but I'm sorry to say I had no report before the County Council, so you weren't able to ask me a question. But this will come before the next meeting of the County Council, and you can ask a question there if you're minded to. We have a full report here on fire as a health asset, and I think it's a pretty comprehensive report that we've got. Returning to these minutes, you've got resolve items on pages 2 and 3, and then you come to page 5, which is the update of fire as a health hazard, where you have a recommendation that the full authority receive and note the report, which is here before you. So do you all accept that report?
Sorry, can I
Thank you.
Just as a point of information, I wasn't criticising the report. It's an excellent report. I think this report actually shows the length of work. What I'm saying, it's a shame that it hasn't gone back to council. I have your assurance it will go back to the next council. Obviously, it will be with the new setup. We don't know who's on the authority, who isn't. But
Well,
I still think we do need to let people know.
It's unfortunate that it always happens that meetings get out of sync. What I can just tell you very quickly is that all being well with the railway, I will be in London with Shantha Dickinson tomorrow when we have Promoting Health and Wellbeing, Fire and Health. And that is an all-party parliamentary group meeting. So rest assured that there is a lot happening with fire as a health hazard. Hampshire is very much involved in it all. Be assured of that. Right, thank you. So moving on now to item 12, minutes of the Human Resources Committee. Over to the Vice Chairman, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to present the minutes of the Hampshire Fire and Rescue Human Resources Committee held on the 26th of January. And if I could just bring everyone's attention to 165, which the HR Committee recommends to the authority that the pay policy statement be approved. Can I take it that everyone approves that?
Agree.
Thank you.
Finally, we move to item 13, minutes of Finance and General Purposes Committee held on the 1st of February. Councillor Stubbs, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to propose the minutes from the Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting. There are a number of recommendations contained within the report. The two blocks. The first block under item 183 is now no longer relevant, as those are recommendations relating to the budget, and the budget's now been agreed. But there are also a set of recommendations under item 185 pertaining to personal protective equipment, and the report on that is included in your pack. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? No? All agreed?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. That concludes the meeting today. We now reconvene in meeting room A for our luncheon. I look forward to meeting you all there. Thank you.